Hey, you guys. Okay, so I'm going to continue our Greek mythology readings. And today we're going to be continuing with Jason and the Golden Fleece. This one's a little bit brutal, actually. So, kind of a lot of sad things happen, but it's a really good myth. Jason and the Golden Fleece. Aeson, lord of the city of Iolcos in northern Greece, was too good hearted and trusting to rule strongly. He didn't notice until it was too late that his treacherous brother Peleus was plotting against him. Peleus seized the throne and forced Aeson to flee for his life. He took his little son Jason with him, for he knew that Peleus would kill the boy if he could, as Jason was the rightful heir to the throne. To keep him well hidden, Aeson entrusted him to Chiron, the centaur, who brought him up in his cave in the mountains. This might seem an odd choice of guardian because centaurs, who are men to the waist but have the body of a horse, are well known for being rowdy and badly behaved. But Chiron was an exception. He was a wise and noble centaur who brought Jason up to be brave, self-reliant, and just. When Jason was almost full grown, Chiron summoned him and said, "It is time for you to go out into the world. With the gods' blessing, you will do famous things. But remember this, never take the easier way unless it is the better way, and you will deserve their goodwill." Then he gave Jason a leopard skin cloak and two broad-bladed spears and sent him out into the world. Jason knew exactly what he wanted to do. He would return to Iolcos to claim his throne. As he went on his way, he came to a river swollen by floodwater. It eddied dangerously, and there was no bridge. Jason hitched up his tunic and was about to wade in when he heard a pitiful voice calling to him. An old woman was crouched on the bank, wringing her hands and moaning. "Will no one carry me across?" The river looked dangerous to cross even without a burden, and Jason was about to ignore her when he remembered the words of Chiron. He turned back and offered to carry her over. The old woman leapt on his back as nimbly as a goat and proved amazingly heavy. Jason staggered in the water and lost one of his sandals in midstream, but he managed to get over somehow and set her down. Then the old woman grew tall and upright, and her whole being shone with light. "I am Hera, queen of Olympus," she said. "I will not forget that you help the helpless. When you are in need, I will help you." Jason bowed to the ground before the goddess, and when he lifted his head, she had gone. He continued on the road to Iolcos, entered its gates boldly, and asked to be taken to the king. Peleus looked at the travel-stained stranger up and down with contempt, but his expression soon changed to one of fear. He had seen that one of Jason's sandals was missing and knew it was prophesied that a man with only one shoe would take his kingdom from him. He began at once to think of a way of getting rid of this threat. He asked the stranger courteously who he was, and on learning that this was his long-lost nephew, Jason, he welcomed him to Iolcos. "I am glad to meet you too," said Jason, "for I have a proposal to make. The throne you sit on is mine, but I do not mean to rob you of your wealth and lands. It is enough if you give up the kingship to me." Peleus seemed to agree. "I am getting old," he said. "I should be glad to give up the cares of governing, but first I must be sure that you are worthy to rule. I will set you a task fit for a hero. In the land of King Aedes of Colchis, a golden fleece hangs on a sacred oak tree guarded by a serpent that never sleeps. That fleece is rightly ours, for it belonged to the winged ram the gods sent to Iolcos long ago to rescue a kinsman of ours from certain death. It carried him over the seas to Colchis. The ghost of that kinsman cannot rest until the fleece is brought back here. Fetch it, and the throne is yours." Jason agreed that this was a fair bargain, for he was eager to prove that he could do great deeds. Peleus was delighted too, for he was sure that Jason would never return from such a terrible errand. Colchis lay at the very end of the world, and the way there was impossibly long and beset with dangers. But Jason was not frightened. He ordered the best boatmaker in Greece to build him a ship with 2 mighty sails and space for 50 oarsmen. Then he sent heralds to all the cities of Greece, calling for brave men to be his crew. He soon had 50 volunteers, all of them fine warriors, eager to be off. He named his ship the Argo, meaning swift, and he and his crew were known as the Argonauts. After a great farewell banquet, the Argonauts pulled on their oars to reach the open sea, then raised the Argo's broad sails and sped on their way to Colchis. The Argo was storm-tossed. She lost supplies overboard. Her rowers grew tired. Winds shredded her sails. Many times she was forced to put in to some unknown harbor for shelter and repair. On the shores of Thrace, the Argonauts took refuge with blind King Phineus. He was a famous soothsayer who had been blinded by Zeus for foretelling the future too well. It didn't suit the gods for mortals to know what they were up to. And as if blinding wasn't enough, they had sent a pair of hideous bird monsters called harpies to torment him. Whenever a meal was put before the king, these creatures with the heads of women and the talons of eagles swooped on the food and snatched it away or spattered it with their droppings. The wretched king was wasting away from starvation. The Argonauts hacked at them with their swords, but the harpies dodged and darted back. Then 2 of the crew, Calais and Zetes, who were sons of the north wind, flew into the air after them and chased them out to sea, and then they were seen no more. Grateful Phineus warned Jason of the terrible clashing rocks that the Argo must pass through to enter the Black Sea. Whenever a vessel passed between them, the rocks rushed together and crushed it to pieces. Phineus told Jason to release a dove to fly through first in order to judge how long it took the rocks to meet. Jason's dove got through with only a few tail feathers lost. When the rocks had drawn back again, the Argonauts strained every muscle to row between them in the time it takes a bird to fly. Hera was guarding them, for only the end timbers of the Argo's stern were crushed. After many more adventures, they came at last to Colchis, the land of sorcerers, and rowed up the broad river that brought them to King Aeetes' palace. Jason explained his mission courteously to the king, who told the Argonauts to go back where they came from before he had their tongues cut out and hands lopped off. But his daughter Medea, a dark-eyed sorceress, had taken a liking to their handsome leader. She calmed her father and made him agree that Jason could have the fleece if he could yoke the king's 2 fire-breathing, brazen-footed bulls, plow a field with them, and sow it with dragon's teeth. Medea secretly offered to help Jason in return for marriage. She gave him a special lotion to bathe his body, his spear, and his shield so that the bull's breath could not scorch them, and told him that after sowing the teeth, he must throw a stone into the midst of the field. Jason yoked the terrible bulls, plowed all day, and at nightfall, he scattered the dragon's teeth over the fresh furrows. Immediately, ferocious-looking armed men sprouted from the soil. Jason hurled the stone among them. "You struck me, brother," cried one man to his neighbor, and dealt him a savage blow. The quarrel spread until the whole field was fighting, and it did not stop until the entire army had destroyed itself. Although Jason had completed his task, Aeetes went back on his word and refused to give up the fleece. He planned to burn Jason's boat and murder his crew. Medea woke Jason in the night and led him to the grove where the fleece glittered on the sacred oak. The tree was wrapped in the coils of a loathsome serpent, but she sprinkled sleep in its eyes while Jason stealthily unfastened the fleece. Then they fled together to the beach where the Argo lay. The Argonauts had not sailed far when they saw Aeetes' ships in close pursuit. Medea seized her young half-brother, Apirsthes, whom she had brought with her. "Kill him," she said, and cut him into pieces. Then she threw the pieces one by one into the sea. While her father stopped to collect his son's body piece by piece to give him a proper burial, the Argo sped back to Iolcos. Jason and his bride were welcomed by the people, and the fleece was hung in the temple. Jason was declared king of Iolcos, for he forced Peleus to keep his word. But Medea loved revenge and did not mean to let the old king die in peace. She told his daughters, I can make the old young again. Watch me. She took a ram, cut it into joints, boiled it in a cauldron with magic herbs, uttered a spell, and instead of the old ram, a young lamb leaped out. Then she said to the daughters, do this to your father and he will be young too. But she only told them half the spell. They cut their father in pieces and boiled him, but he never came to life again. Jason came to hate Medea for her savage ways and took a kindly wife instead, Glauce, a princess of Corinth. Medea's revenge was terrible. She sent wedding gifts for Glauce, a golden crown and a long white robe. She had dipped both in poison. When Glauce tried them on, flames shot up and burned her to ashes. Then Medea, laughing savagely, stepped into a chariot drawn by winged serpents and flew away forever. Pretty creepy, right? People being cut up. It's one of the more brutal myths, but I think it's entertaining. I'm going to share the pictures with you. Hopefully this will work. Yeah, okay. So there aren't a lot of pictures, actually. This is the first one. These are the harpies. They have faces of women, but then bodies of birds, and they have the talons, like for fingers and toes. So that was the first thing. And this is the part where he has to go between those two rocks that will smash you. And so he sent the dove first. Oops, sorry. And then this last one is the picture of him getting the fleece because Medea made the serpent fall asleep. And that's it. That's it for this one. So hopefully you enjoyed that one, and I'll have more for you tomorrow. Okay, bye you guys. Talk to you later.